Hello my friends, it's episode 30, and since it's going to be just a bit of a grind episode, I thought I would take this special opportunity to use episode 30 to talk about difficulty in game design. And the reason why is, you guys have obviously just watched the last 3 episodes, which represented some level of challenge for me and my team. And so you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why did Edmund think that that was a load of bullshit when, at the end of the day, he did win the Flashpoint and, you know, in spite of the difficulty, it wasn't a problem. So why does Edmund think it's poor design? And I suppose I've never really explained the concepts of game design as to why I feel that way, but also why instinctively a lot of players will, especially if they lose on that mission, feel like it's bullshit. So, allow me to explain. In video games, you interact with a whole lot of systems. We use BattleTech as an example here because we're playing BattleTech. So, for example, one system is that damage is dealt based on your angle relative to the enemy's angle, i.e. you shoot at the front of them, you hit the front, you shoot at the side, you hit the side, you shoot the back, you hit the back, and so on. There's an evasion system that determines how many of your shots are going to hit. You have heat management, which is mostly a solo pastime, as in you are managing your heat and you need to manage it well, but it's not generally something that the enemy can interact with the exception in normal BattleTech of flamethrowers. They added the overpowered Inferno missiles in Heavy Metal, if I remember correctly, but we'll come back to that. Anyway, you interact with these systems. You know, you've got the systems of fitting weapons versus fitting armor, and so on. Now,
command interface initiated.
When you are challenged within the confines of those systems, within the systems in which you understand are part of the game that you're playing, you never feel like the difficulty is bullshit. You may feel like it's unfair or that the game is unduly difficult. If you're facing off against 20 Atlases, you may quite rightly say that that's unfair or incredibly difficult. But your brain won't reach for the word, oh, that's, you know, that's bullshit. And the reason why is because within the confines of the systems of the game, it's fair. You know, there are 20 Atlases are going to shoot at your mechs. They're going to obey the angling rules. You're going to be able to use your mechs to dodge their shots. The whole battle will feel overwhelming, but it won't feel like the AI is cheating. And that my issue with that mission was that all of those OP flame weapons, the fuel air bombs, have been added to the game, but the Infernos were also added by HBS and Heavy Metal. They weren't originally there either. They cause a system to be bypassed. That is the heat management system. In a normal battle, you manage your heat.
Location confirmed.
And the enemy doesn't really interact with it unless they've got flamethrowers, which is something that you can manage, you know, by examining the enemy as they're closing in and checking for flamethrowers and all that kind of thing. Now, when an LRM boat puts 100 heat damage on you from across the other side of the map, they're bypassing a whole system of the game that has, you know, heat mismanagement has a huge punishment, which is shutdown, the loss of a whole turn and being completely vulnerable. It bypasses the whole complexity and management part of that system and just says, actually, you're just going to be shut down now. And there's really nothing that you can do about it. And this is where, you know, other bullshit stuff like nukes and artillery from BattleTech, this is why they trigger the hatred in the part of your brain somewhere that makes you scream, oh, you know, that was just garbage. Is because those artillery weapons are bypassing systems. They're bypassing the evasion system. The artillery never misses. So there's a whole evasion and positioning system of the game that is being completely ignored. They also ignore the directional system.
Got something you want done?
So when you've successfully kept your front pointed towards the enemy, you are expecting to take damage via the front. But artillery will deal damage to every part of your mech. Front, back, side, everything. And that will also feel like nonsense. Like the AI is cheating, because there's just so many aspects of the game's systems that you expect to work, i.e. that your positioning works, that your evasion works, that are bypassed by something like an artillery strike. Not the ones included in the base game, because they telegraph themselves. And interestingly, that shows good design in putting back the system. So artillery doesn't miss, but by putting a marker on the map and giving you a turn to evade it, they have allowed you to dodge it. So they have put positioning back in a system where positioning would be bypassed. And so basically this is where my problem with these kind of difficulty
Scored a critical hit.
design decisions, this is where my problem with them comes in, is
Yes, Commander. Yes, Commander.
you know, if you're bypassing parts of how the game is supposed to work, it's never going to feel fair.
Certainly.
Confirmed. Acknowledge.
What do we got here? This looks like a whole load of target practice. Gonna push this guy down the turn order.
Target. That hit something good.
So yeah, if you couldn't quantify it before why you feel like certain things are nonsense compared to other things, examine whether the thing in question bypasses the game's rules, the game's systems, the thing that makes the game what it is, the rules of the game. Typically speaking, the more something bypasses one of the game's systems, the more, you know, feels bad it becomes. And good game design never seeks to bypass the rules. It always seeks to beat you within the confines of the established rules. Whatever those rules are. And you may say, well, you know, the whole heat system is within the confines of the rules. We have established that heat can be added to a mech using weapons. And that is true, but it has to be... If you're gonna bypass a system, it has to be done very, very carefully.
Good to go.
And, you know, with a limited amount of actual bypassing the system. Otherwise, it will be a feels bad.
Roger. Yup. You got it.
Let's go, Stompy boys. In the house.
Primary target is taking damage.
So, anyway,
One more for the trashy.
those are my thoughts. And if you look at, for example, Long War of the Chosen, it has exactly the same flaw.
You have
Whole systems were purged from the game, reducing strategy and interest. Like, for example, grenades no longer destroying cover. Just completely removes your ability to manipulate cover from most of the game. I mean, sure, you can still destroy cover with rockets, but you get such a limited amount of rockets. Maybe, you know, often no more than one a mission. That just a huge chunk of skill
Reporting. Vehicle destroyed.
that was used to play the game, i.e. understanding which bits of terrain to destroy and when, you know, when to expose enemies,
Waiting
when
for
to
orders.
use your precious grenades. All of that skill set and interest and strategy that revolves
Heading out.
around that system has just been stripped away.
Here it comes.
Damn it. I managed to hit the two parts of it that actually could take the damage. It's sort of also why Gorse
Wow. There. Oh, it's on now.
kind of is a
Standing
feels
by.
bad weapon as well. Because it just it ignores your armor to do critical damage to your systems.
Engaging.
At least where Gorse ignores armor.
Reporting. Vehicle destroyed.
Though it is in a limited and controlled way. You know, you can break the rules in a limited and controlled way. But, you know, a couple of flamethrowers that add 20 heat is a limited, and only at short range, is a limited and controlled way. A volley of missiles from across the map that adds... I think at one point, one mech took like 160 heat damage in a single volley.
What's up, boss?
That is, not cool.
Reporting. One less vehicle.
These poor tanks, man. They're getting the kinky stepped-on treatment.
Standing by.
Now let's see how you handle this.
On my way. Affirmative.
Get your lance to the LZ, Commander. I'm coming in hot.
If you say so.
What are your orders, Skipper?
I'm gonna step on
Here we
you.
So much for that, Liz.
Mission successful.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect of game design. But yeah, I mean, you know, instant hit artillery weapons, which is the reason why there aren't any in BTR apart from the one that came with the base game, and that one has been massively nerfed to do mostly stability damage instead of direct damage. Are just bollocks because they ignore so many rules. They ignore directional damage rule, they ignore evasion, they ignore your positioning because they just basically never miss. your only defense is to charge down the guy with the weapon and kill him ASAP. That is not strategic at all. That is just a pain. And the funny part is, that's the same kind of balance that's in Long War of the Chosen. Is there are things where your only choice is to just charge at the enemy and take them down ASAP. Like, that's almost like the failure state for a bad mod. Is the only good strategy to just run at the enemy and kill them ASAP. Then you probably took all the strategy out of the game. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? That those two have got something very much in common. Because strategy certainly goes out the window when AoE missiles just go flying over terrain and hit you no matter how fast you're going. Your lights charge at the enemy with 9 evasion tokens meant to represent, you know, the fact that they're moving at incredible speed and are really hard to hit. And then an artillery shot just hits them directly because it ignores the evasion rules. It just targets a point on the ground, which you can choose based on where the running mech has ended up. You know, it's silly. It creates a situation where it almost creates the uncanny universe situation, which is where the game is the opposite of real life, like the polar opposite of real life. And it creates a situation where artillery is the ultimate weapon against incredibly fast, lightly armored units, which in real life is the thing that artillery is absolutely bad against. The one thing that artillery is really awful against is things moving very quickly. That is the least optimal target for artillery. The thing that artillery wants to shoot in real life is big fat thing that's not moving at all, like a building or an entrenched position or a group of tanks that have been hulled down. That is the ideal target for artillery. The ideal target for artillery is not 5, recon cars doing 90 to 110 miles an hour, through a forest. But the opposite is true. Is in something like BattleTech, the ultimate weapon against a horde of light mechs running through a forest, where they should literally be untargetable by artillery, or impossible to pinpoint, is artillery. Because it ignores evasion as a thing. It ignores that system completely. And that is where, the awfulness in the design comes in. That's where you get that feeling of like, oh, this is, this feels like the game is cheating. That's because, in the back of your subconscious mind somewhere, you're realizing that the rules of the game are being broken. And so it feels like cheating. Even if, the game itself is claiming that this is perfectly okay and well within the confines of how things should go. But it feels wrong because it is wrong. So it's just it's a very interesting thing, not just about game design, but how people interact with games. It's been a well-known solution to the artillery problem to just have it telegraph. As in, when you fire it, it marks the area where it's going to hit, and then you have a limited window of time to not be there. And you design that in such a way that units that are slow, generally speaking, can't get out in time, so they get hit. But units that are fast and maneuverable can get out in time, and so are not hit. And thus you you force artillery back into the real life box of being good against slow big targets, being good against fixed positions, and not being good against fast evasive things. So as a games designer, you can think about how adding something that breaks one of your established systems, how you can then add something additionally to then force it back into the box so it feels fair. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting to talk about. The long story short is that a little bit of heat damage adds a little bit of spice to the game. But you have to understand that it is a rule-breaking system. It's, you know, the normal way that you normally play
Commander.
is that heat is something that you worry about
On the
because
move.
it's ammunition, basically. Heat is an ammunition type that you manage.
Of course.
And the weapon that fires that ammunition is energy weapons.
You got it.
So if you're going to put something into the game
Roger.
that allows you to directly attack someone's ammunition, it needs to be very carefully balanced and constrained, because otherwise it's going to feel bad. In the same way that Gorse, going through armor, might find a crate, you know, an ammunition pack, and detonate it, and thus do massive damage to you, and also prevent the use of your weapons. That is not how it's meant to be.
Reserving action.
You're meant to have this whole engagement where you are trying to avoid damage or place damage where it is least able to destroy your ammunition or your heat sinks. And the enemy is trying to do the opposite. They're trying to place damage where it's most likely to result in you
Yup.
losing weapons, losing capability,
Roger that, Commander.
losing ammunition, etc. And that is the back and forth of the established systems, which brings which brings enjoyment to the game.
Fun time.
Go away, you pest.
Crawler destroyed.
Anyway, I had to get it off my chest. I don't generally like to talk about games design too much, though I am thinking of doing a new series about game design, or at least about strategy toolboxing.
Awaiting orders.
Because you always get into arguments with people who have a non-academic opinion on games design. Maybe not on this channel, because I know most of you guys are older and, you know, more
Standing by.
you know, I have
Good to go.
more thinkers,
Ready for orders.
as it were. Ooh, an LRM carrier. We definitely don't want to allow that to live.
What's the plan? Waiting for orders. I copy.
Okay, that also looks like an LRM carrier. Yeah, I don't like to get into arguments with
You have orders?
people about game design when more often than not always true, but more often than not, through no fault of their own, their opinion on games design is weighted in having played a lot of games but not ever actually studying the systems, the psychology behind them. I guess the best way of putting it, and this was actually put to me once, is it's like having a conversation with an incredibly talented race car driver but you're a guy that builds cars. You're a guy that designs cars. And, you know, their opinion is always going to be...
Full speed ahead.
Through no fault of their own, they may be the best racing car driver on Earth. Their opinion is always going to be from a position of driving the vehicle.
Standing by.
But not from actually building the vehicle, which is what you do. You build the vehicle. And so there are things that they're just not going to get.
Confirmed. Mech warriors, show them what you
Well,
got.
I mean, you know,
I've got eyes on
obviously,
hostile
given
reinforcements. They're heading your way.
given enough time and a willingness to learn, anybody can learn anything. I just want to put that out there.
What's up,
I'm not
boss?
saying that it's stupid or anything, but a race car driver doesn't,
Acknowledged.
you know, doesn't need to know that the exhaust pipe has to be at 15 degrees precisely and to the right, and, you know, have a ring diameter of, say, 8 millimeters or something. You know, some heinously technical, complex thing about the exhaust pipe doesn't concern a race car driver at all, in any way whatsoever. And it's not something that they would ever think about unless there was something wrong with it. If someone had stuck a potato in the end of the pipe, then the driver is concerned about it and they know that something is wrong, and they may even be able to point to where the issue is, which is where this analogy is really good. But asking them to fix it is ridiculous, right? They were never concerned with the design of the tailpipe before there was a problem with it, and they've never studied designing tailpipes, and they had no interest in tailpipes until something went wrong with the tailpipe. Then they had an opinion. It's I told someone, I can't remember who it was, someone within Slytherin who was in the art
One
department,
for the scrap heap.
marketing. And I said, you know, that I got my degree in game design. And I said, but it's like the least respected profession on Earth.
My old mama can hit harder than
And
that.
she said, oh, you know, why do you think that? And I said, because it's everyone thinks that they can do it. Everybody thinks that they can do it. That's the thing. Everyone thinks that they have great ideas
Ready to rock.
because they've played games. Because they've driven the car, they think that they can build a car. And as I said, I'm not being arrogant here. Anyone can go to university and actually study how games are built. Anyone can go through reams of example code, white papers, etc. Anyone could become knowledgeable if you want to put the time in. I put 4 years in. People can put more years than that of their lives into studying design. There are masters and PhDs on offer. You can put like 7 or 8 years into your life just understanding the complexities of
Ready
it
for
all.
orders.
But not everyone does. That's the point. It's, yeah.
How might I help?
This is me being trying to be as diplomatic as possible. But, you know, I mean, doctors probably go through the same thing. And in fact, you know, there's another analogous example there, in that, you know, everybody has a body, right? Obviously, which they use all the time.
Going skyward.
But you are not a doctor. Apologies to the one person watching this who is a doctor. You're not a doctor. I'm not a doctor, okay? I'm like the one guy that is the first person to go to the doctor's office when something's gone wrong, and I don't, you know, and something isn't right. You know, because I just know that something is wrong, but I don't know what is wrong, or even if something is wrong. Sometimes you think something is wrong, and actually, nothing's wrong. You're just misdiagnosing yourself. There's actually nothing wrong.
All weapons are go.
And that happens in games design as well. People say, oh,
One more for the
you know,
team.
this unit isn't balanced. This unit is really annoying. This unit isn't fun to play against. Blah, blah, blah. And then they don't realize that the challenge and frustration of dealing with that unit is actually what is making them carry on playing the game. The fact that they're not easily winning and that they're having frustrating battles is the pit which makes the victory so much sweeter when they win.
Skipper,
They would destroy their own enjoyment of the game without even realizing that they're doing it. World of Tanks is a good example of this, in that they put a system in where you can face enemies up to 2 tiers higher than you. So sometimes you're top tier, and sometimes you're bottom tier, and sometimes you're somewhere in the middle. And I was high blue, low purple in that game, which is basically a very good player, but not like professional or anything. That put me in the top 5% of players, let's say. And I can tell you that when you are bottom tier, you're lucky if you can just, you know, get a kill, like go for par, basically. Find some other guys who are also trapped in bottom tier and take them out. I mean, it does depend on, you know, if there are 10 other blokes who are also the same tier as you, and then there's like one guy who's the one tier above and 2 guys who are top tier, then there's lots of targets at your level to go for, and so you can probably get lots of kills and do very well. You can always fight the fight, whether you're top tier or bottom tier, but it's hard. If you're bottom tier and you're one of 2 people who are bottom tier and everyone else is top tier and there's one other guy who's mid tier, so you're facing off against pretty much an entire team of enemies that are 2 tiers higher than you, you're in for a bad time. And so people hate it, and they quite rightly say, oh, you know, I hate bottom tier matches. Why can't you
What's up, boss?
tighten the tiers so that we're not in these bottom tier matches where you just get wrecked or you have almost no chance? Given players that are equally as capable as you have no hope.
Vehicle destroyed.
But they don't realize that that is part of what makes World of Tanks fun. Whether they, you know... Ooh, that's nasty.
Hit.
We'll have to do something about that. Anyway, they don't understand that... Wow, nearly taken out by a cicada. Gah. Ugh. Anyway, they don't realize that those horrible matches where you get absolutely ruined and you can do nothing about it,
Confirmed.
they make the matches where you're top tier and you're just wrecking everybody
10-4.
all the sweeter. That is the point, is
Here we go.
they're deliberately creating imbalanced matches. Because
Got something you want done?
winning is fun. But you want everyone to have fun. So if you want everyone to have fun, then they've got to win at some point. So what World of Tanks, what the algorithm does, is it works out
Reporting.
how much you're winning. And if you're winning a lot, then it puts you into increasingly harder matches and increasingly places you in the bottom tier
Firing.
until you lose.
That hit something good.
But what if you're on a massive losing streak? Then you're not having fun. So what does World of Tanks do? It puts you in the top tier, so that you will have a huge advantage over everyone else. which means that even though you're bad, you can still get a few kills, maybe even win a match. And that is what is going on, is it's balancing all the needs of all the players to maximize the chances that people who win a lot will lose, and people who lose a lot
What are your orders, Skipper?
will win. Which is why
Yes, Commander.
you have the very, 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 very best players only maybe have a 60% win rate. Like, the best players in the world are treading around a 60%-ish win rate. That puts you at Super Unicum, which is like as the highest the rating system goes. And people who are terrible have like a 40% win rate. Because the algorithm is working overtime to make sure that the guy who's at a 40% win rate doesn't lose any more than that. And the guy who is currently enjoying a 50+% win rate is going to eventually lose some battles. I get behind this guy. That is definitely a side hit.
Skipper?
Give it to him.
Well, this looks bad. Bye-bye.
But players will obviously whine about the tier system non-stop. Because it's not fair. And they're correct.
Watch the flank.
It isn't fair. It's not fair by design.
Yes, Commander.
And that design is good design.
Confirmed.
It is unfair design, but it is good design.
Yes, Commander.
That is an unacceptable truth for many people.
Commander.
And of course people say, oh well, it shouldn't be like that, or even worse, that they say that it isn't like that. Despite the fact that Wargaming, I think that's what they call themselves, company behind World of Tanks, they actually literally gave a presentation on why it's like that. They called it the roller coaster of emotions, and they literally credit how successful and how profitable World of Tanks is to the roller coaster of emotions.
Firing.
Which is why the tier system will never change.
Reporting. Firing. Enemy down.
Goodbye.
Mission successful.
So yes, anyway. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. My nose has been itching the entire time because there's pollen everywhere at the moment for some reason. There's like a second awakening of the flowers right now. Yeah. Can't wait until they're all dead. That's so harsh of me. There are certain flowers that seem to like to exist in the moment after everything has died during the summer, but just before the winter comes. And they hang around for a few weeks and then they go away. Okay, took one in the face there. In the face. Oh, cheaty heat weapons. Why not? I still need to experiment with those generic weapons and see if they actually work. That'd be very interesting. bum, bum. Yep. So that is my incoherent game design rant for episode 30. Done. Hopefully someone can sift some knowledge out of that dumpster fire. But yeah. It's a difficult life in games design for sure. It is definitely a sea of race car drivers telling you how to build a car. Man, I have so much money, it's ridiculous in this game. I wanted to do this for the reputation, but it's against someone from whom I already have an awful reputation. Sort of been slowly working up my reputation, but that Concordat drop is pretty severe. Right, before we finish up, let me just see if there's somewhere around here that offers the potential of...
Bio command.
somewhere where I might be able to spend some of my money on nice gear. Yeah, it's one of them. It is, for sure. So funny, because I actually had in Jersey, I had a really chill doctor, and he was like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Well, you're the doctor. I wouldn't presume to know." I work with machines, and I know from working with machines that you don't just ignore strange new sounds, because eventually strange new sounds turn into real problems. More often than not, strange new sound is a fan
Looks like we've arrived, Commander.
working itself out of its hinges, but you know, in another good example, if you let a fan slowly work its way off its hinges and it breaks free and goes flying through a cable, now you've got a problem. Wow, this is one expensive mech. +1 accuracy all. Minus 10% damage lance? What? I guess everyone gains accuracy, and you get you take 10% less damage. Oh, look at this. I could almost afford it. Except that, you know, these guys hate me. Ooh! Although it's an AC5, and in a world of Ultra AC5s, the AC5 is garbage. Ah! It's the Holy Grail! Lullaby!
New weapon systems available.
Oh, there's two of them. It's the Holy Grail of weapon systems. That isn't the LBX2 or the Ultra AC2, but still pretty sweet. See if there's some contracts here for next time. Yeah. There are contracts here, but they're only going to make the Concordat hate me more. And that's probably not a good idea. That is unfortunate. Oh well. Might do a bit more shopping before we find some more missions to do. But that is it for now, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time.